Hello, everybody. Here is Michael from New Left, and today we will have an interesting discussion with one of the most important people in Europe who are running unions. Oli, can you please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, how you came to this seat of yours with nice head bamming device on your back? So who are you?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the invitation, and it's really a pleasure to just have a chat. My name is Oliver Rötig. I'm the regional secretary, which is effectively the general secretary of Uni Europa. And Uni Europa, again, is the European Services Workers Union. We represent 7 million workers across Europe. And across Europe means really across entire Europe plus the Middle East. And our sectors are ranging from commerce, post, media, gambling, so casinos we have as well. We have hairdressers, we have the ICTS sector, and we have the finance sector. So altogether, we are 14 sectors that we organize.
Mm-hmm.
My background.
Sorry. Is it safe to say that you are the most influential trade unionist in Europe, or like I don't know, but still, yeah, it's like purely from the position where you are standing and the power and the decisions that you are making with your colleagues. Obviously, I hope it's a democracy, but still, is there someone with bigger muscles than you are?
Definitely there are. I mean, certainly, of course, Uni Europa is the European Trade Union Federation, which means we are a group bringing together national affiliates. And of course, the main part of the work of the trade unions is happening at the national level. Our industrial relations systems are still in the first place based nationally. And at European level, Uni Europa is one of the European trade union federations. And the European Trade Union Federation,
the biggest one, as far as I know, huh?
Depends how you count. So
okay.
We have three big ones, which is one for manufacturing, one for public services, and then us for the services sector. These are the big and also with extent the biggest. What is, of course, true, we all have our strengths in the process, and the key point is pooling our strengths and moving in one direction. And as we are the sectoral organization as European Trade Union Federations, we of course have also the European Trade Union Confederation, so the national umbrella, the European umbrella organization. And that is of course the organization to go to when we talk about EU legislation in the first place. And there we are part of the European Trade Union Confederation, the ETUC, and there of course is, let's say, our political strengths. But at the same time, as Uni Europa, and that is the same for the other European trade union federations, key aspects of our work is really strengthening the bargaining power of our affiliates, and that is a key role. When we look at industrial relations, and we do this through working together with affiliates on organizing, with our relationships with multinational companies, we have global agreement, we are involved in hundreds of European works councils. That is where we basically concretely create a countervailing power for our trade unions. And then, of course, together with the ETUC and other actors here at the European level, we want to make sure that that really EU politics serves the workers and doesn't do the opposite, which is always a very difficult struggle.
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking exactly the structure that you were describing now, because many people in Europe, and let's say really many people in Europe, don't really know how unions are structured and who actually holds the rails and who has the power and who makes the decision and so on. So it's safe to say then you are one of the rail holders and one of the people who kind of structure the whole edifice of, well, what is it, 20 million people that are organized in unions in Europe, as far as I know.
We have over 40 million.
40 million, there you go. Even I don't know this. Mea
but
culpa.
Yes, obviously the trade unions are democratic organizations. So I'm the general secretary, the head of the secretariat. We have a president, we have an executive board, and of course the decisions are done by our decision-making bodies, and we execute them. But of course we also have a key role in preparing decisions. And for Uni Europa, which is very special in comparison to our sister organizations. Uni Europa is also part of Uni Global, that is a global trade union federation, and we work very closely together. So there's a lot of work happening, especially when we look at multinational companies, but also at organizing. So the point is, yes, I have a role to play, but it's a role among many, and the key point is both within the Secretariat, here at European level, but also at global level, but also with our affiliates. The key point is working as a team, and that is the same when we work together with the other European trade union federations and the European Trade Union Confederation, so the ETUC.
I wasn't suggesting that there is some autocratic going on. I just wanted to make it clear that you are one of in the higher echelons of the whole structure. And that leads me to the first proper question, because you have one can say bird's view. Yeah, you see it from the top. You are not on the ground. Well, someone has to be on the top, someone has to be on the ground. So how do you see post-communistic countries from your position? So you are in Brussels, you see the whole picture of European Union and of all of Europe as such, and roughly 100 million people out of these 450 million that are in European Union are coming from post-communistic countries. So, well, it's not nothing. And the situation of unions in our part of the European Union isn't exactly rosy. And that was the main reason for me to have this discussion, to see your point of view, how you see it, what you think is working, what you think, well, has a room for improvement, and, pick your brain a little bit. So please tell us.
So first of all, I mean, the situation is not rosy
Anywhere.
or anywhere in Europe.
Except for Iceland. Iceland is doing fine.
Iceland is a very small country, and I'm also very happy there. Especially this year, we gained some new affiliates from Iceland, and some others increased their membership substantially. So
Iceland can't grow anymore because you can't go about 100. So,
Well, that's not quite true. I mean, I always remember the story of a Mexican state election where the governor won the election.
Oh yeah, he was 100%
of the vote.
So well, okay, records are made to be broken. So, but still, yeah. Jokes aside, so how you see it?
So, as I said, the situation is very difficult everywhere. I mean, we have challenges, and they are in the West as well as in the East. Look, for instance, when we look at politics. I mean, there is a real tendency to more far-right movements everywhere that questions not only the European Union, but also democracy itself. So that's a challenge for the trade unions. And many of those who are supporting this are also coming from the trade union movement. So that's a challenge for us. Especially Europe, we are also faced with global restructuring, the rise of AI and other changes. Well, I mean, rise of China, the behavior of the US, which really rattles the system that we have in Europe. We also see, and that's a challenge more for the West, that there is, of course, nearshoring. So jobs are created in Eastern Europe, which is positive for Eastern Europe, but also puts strain on the system. Excuse me. So that is a challenge. On the other hand, I have to say the Iron Curtain came down, 40 years ago, a bit more now. We're going towards 50 years. The challenge there is I see light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the intercity train coming our direction. We have really good work done in Romania, for instance, where we saw 15 years ago a government which basically destroyed collective bargaining at sectoral level, at multi-company level. And already 10 years ago, in one of the sectors, in the banking sector, we managed to bring, together with our unions there, sectoral collective bargaining back by really engaging with multinational companies and making sure that they say we want to have agreements which are basically joint ones and apply to the major part of the sector. And then with the help of the European Union, a couple of years ago, the EU insisted that Romanian law changes being more positive for sectoral collective bargaining. And then in the finance sector and then in the insurance sector, we got the first real sectoral agreements for Romania again. and they were erga omnes. That said, that's a positive part of the story, and now we see a counter push by the
All the
government
others.
and by some companies to roll us back. So it's a constant struggle. But what I see, whether in the West or in the East, we have now a new generation who clearly see if we don't work together as workers, as trade unions, we have a problem. So I think there's a shift. Let's be honest as well. When we started, many trade unions in Central and Eastern Europe were basically seen as a continuation of the communist regime, and trade unions are there to do what the government does and organize holidays. I'm just very polemic there. And I
No,
think,
not so much. It's true, Ollie. It's true. I
and
live
this,
there. I know.
look, and it's totally polemic, and it's used by politicians and employers to keep us small. But I think this feeling is changing. So there are more and more pockets which get bigger where people actually organize. We have two organizing centers as in Europa, one for Central Europe in Warsaw, and we have another one for Southeast Europe in Bucharest in Romania. So we are trying really to work on it. We have now a policy, a strategic policy, what we want to implement over our Congress period, over the next 4 or 5 years, is really looking at a number of countries, and in those countries trying to build up a critical mass of sectoral collective bargaining. How do we want to do this? As I said, we want to choose in Europe 3 countries, and in each of them we want to try to organize in 3 sectors. So in 3 of our services sector, get together there with the unions there, build up the union strengths in terms of organizing and their collective bargaining capacity, but also use our influence as a European trade union movement to push the multinational companies in the sector to actually go towards sectoral collective bargaining, as well as trying to influence the political environment through leverage we have with the European Union, but also in the government say we need laws which really promote collective bargaining, strengthen collective bargaining at the national level. We have a big campaign here at European level, which is no public contract without collective agreement. We started this 2021, and now we are in the process of changing the European legislation on this. And one of our key demands
Is it gonna happen, or it's in the making and it's unsure whether it's gonna happen? Because this is a good news if it happens, no?
It's always.
I know you don't have crystal ball, but what your gut feeling is telling you. You are swimming in those waters for some time, so you see a little bit what's going on.
With our campaign and really what the trade unions have done, what the trade unions have put forward, but not only the trade unions, also the employers. I mean, from our sectors, the industrial cleaning sector and the private security sector is in particular concerned, but also from one of our sister organizations, the catering service. They are concerned, and they were working closely together with the employers, who also say, if we don't get collective bargaining as a standard, it means that the lowest price will succeed, and we get robber barons and cowboy companies undermining the quality and the services of the market. And that's not only a question of workers' rights and the well-being of workers, that is also a question of the competitiveness of the market, of the fairness of the market, because companies get the contract with uncompetitive behavior, undercutting really wages and prices. And there we have a situation where some big companies are saying we are no longer applying for contracts in the public sector because the quality we want to provide, we can't in a system like it is today. And when they can't provide the quality, that also means that the level of services that the customers, the citizens get, is getting lower.
So you have alliances even on the other side of okay. No, that looks promising.
So that's one of the things where we really can see we are making progress, and it's not only us. And one of the key points is too often the discussion is the trade unions against the rest of the world. I mean, that's not the case. We are trade unions, we are social partners, we are the two sides of industry. And of course, as trade unions, we have an interest that jobs are safe, that the economy and the business flourishes, and we want to organize this. And as trade unions, our clear conviction is the best way to do this is employers and trade unions, workers working together and making sure that the company, that the industry is successful. And quite frankly, take the example of artificial intelligence. At European level, we have legislation on artificial intelligence, which will take about 7 years until it is implemented. So everybody knows nowadays 7 years for artificial intelligence is just a joke.
Dinosaurs are alive still.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Legislation doesn't work in this respect. And Europe as a whole has a competitive advantage to China and the US. We have social dialogue, we have collective bargaining, and they're in a very incremental fashion, certainly for the workplace, but I think also for business, because the asset of a company are their workers, they're the knowledges. We can work together and making sure that we really manage artificial intelligence in time, in a timely way, and making sure if there are changes incrementally, we change too. Legislation doesn't work in this way. So there you see, I mean, in this perspective, we really can make progress as trade unions, and that is true for Central and Eastern Europe as much as it is for Western Europe. In Central and Eastern Europe, we have many call centers, contact centers. We have back offices for IT. So many of the workers there at the forefront of the services sectors, services industries in Europe. So there is a potential. And also what is quite clearly in the West, but also in the East, colleagues, workers want hope, and they're more and more pissed off that this hope is denied to them. And they're ready to fight together. And what has to be clear as well, and we shouldn't forget this, 150 years ago, when the trade union movement was founded, we didn't have any rights. The employers were firing anyone who tried to organize. The government was shooting at us, sending us to prison, and we managed to build up a forceful trade union movement. But, and that we have to recognize, a fight is a fight. So somebody gets hurt. And I think the readiness in the situation we have now is much bigger than it was years ago, because we have our strength and we can use our strengths. And when we stick together, we will succeed. Even
situation is more dire than 10 or 20 years ago. Everyone sees that, no? So yeah, certain steps can be taken that were unthinkable 10 or 20 years ago, I guess.
Precisely. And people have the feeling much more than before that it's unfair. When you look at the changes in equality in our societies, it's going apart. And that is something which really annoys workers, everyone, even monkeys. There's this really nice video of two monkeys, one getting a strawberry, the other one gets a cucumber. And the first time he's irritated, the second time he's very irritated, and the third he throws
Deval
the
research,
away.
very important. Yeah, people should know this. This is in our genes, no? Fairness.
Precisely. And that is precisely why I see light at the end of the tunnel, and the end of the tunnel is coming forward, because people know together they can make a difference, and there is no reason to accept injustice that we get more and more in Europe.
Okay, thank you. Another question I wanted to ask you, because I asked the same question Christy Hoffman a few months back when we were doing the interview, is the I call it legacy model of the post-European unions. That is the 70-30 model, because as you were alluding to a few minutes back, that the old unions back then, 30 years ago, when Iron Curtain fell, were full of communists, and there was a lot of distrust everywhere. And out of this distrust, as far as I know, this 70-30 model emerged, so that the model is different in post-communistic countries as in the West, where in the West, the union, the association gets 100% of the money, whereas here in post-communistic countries, only 30% of the money goes to the association, and 70% roughly now, it's roughly 70% stays on the floor of that concrete union. So we have plethora of small unions with little bit money in their bank accounts, but it's not centralized. It's in other Western European countries. And now the question is, do you know about this model and how you see it? Because when I was talking with Christy, she was very explicit that this is in the long run not sustainable, and this is not the way how to done things. But this is the, as I call it, legacy model of post-communistic countries for the last 30 something years, and we have to kind of go around it or do something with it? And I'm curious, what is your take, how to, and what to do with it, no?
So first of all, when you have basically company unions, of course, the challenge is they are much more dependent as a company union on the company's management. And of course, within one company, the company has some leverage. I mean, not least, the people they like, they can support more, get them better jobs and other things. And so having a very confrontational style is then also very difficult for the company union. One of the advantage of having these sectoral multi-company unions is there is space between the workers and their organization on the ground and the union. So when you go into conflict, it's more neutral, it's less personal because there's more distance in there. What is also clear, one of the challenges in Central and Eastern Europe, if the federation is basically not doing anything except coming back to doing some tourism and stuff like this, making some political presentation. So why should you pay money for them? So what is basically the action they do to advance your interest as a worker, as a company union? And they're also looking at some examples in Central and Eastern Europe. If we use the federation, which makes much more sense, as an actor to enhance organizing, upskilling the workforce, the trade unionists in a company, and also seeing we have a strategy to come to sectoral collective bargaining, which basically sets a floor. Then we have actually good arguments that we bring companies to say, yeah, it actually makes sense to pay more for this. And then we have to see what the model is. But I mean, in many of the West European countries, of course, you have a situation where you don't have company trade union structures whatsoever. You just have a union for the sector or multi-sectors, and there basically the work is done. But it's all, even in, I'm German, when I look at Germany, you of course, in an ideal way, have a trade union representation in the company. And of course, they have a specific role. But it's really the key point, the key strength of trade unions is aggregating the views of the workers and trying together to create a win-win situation for everyone. Because otherwise, if your company is doing well, then you get probably higher wages than other companies. If suddenly it doesn't do well, you suddenly get sacked. And there is no real balancing in it. So going for the company model is basically going for, we go with a day. If it's good, it's good. It's bad, it's bad. Whereas if you have a sectoral model, you balance it out. So do you have erratic changes, or you're more like a big tanker ship going straight away, and it takes much more time to change. And what we want to do we want to have this, this solid way forward, but also bringing in enough flexibility that we can really react to changes that are happening in the world.
And this leads to another question because, okay, we spoke about it. Sectoral bargaining in post-communistic countries isn't exactly easy, exactly because of this model, because it's so divided and so spread out that, there is no sectoral bargaining basically in most countries. But as far as I know, the 80% thing is coming from European Union. I don't know when, next year or 2 years, it's still a little bit hazy, but still there is certain push to bargain more. Yeah. And this opens the window in my eyes, and that's the question, to change something about the structure in post-communistic countries. Because when there is this push to bargain more, well, sectoral bargaining looks like the easier way for everyone to do it, because you do one bargaining instead of 17 or whatever. So actually it saves money to everyone. Huh? So how do you see it? Is there a way how to kind of use the leverage of this new incentive, or how to put it, from European Union to change something about post-communistic countries? Because for 30 years, more or less nothing changed, but this is one of the biggest changes, I guess, mainly for post-communistic countries, because we are so low in the bargaining perception or penetration, that the changes will be huge if it comes, no? And it looks like it's gonna come. So
it's already the law. So the law is part of the minimum wage directive, that is minimum wage legislation, which was adopted at European level. And it requires countries who do not have collective bargaining coverage of 80% to come up with a national action plan built together with the social partners. The European Trade Union Confederation, the ETUC, and Uni-Europa were, I think, the key players in really pushing this forward from the trade union side, and I think it's a major success for us. And we are now in the process of getting national action plans in countries. Not everyone has them now, but we're looking at this. After the summer break, we will publish a first assessment. What do the national action plans at the national level say, so that we can learn from each other? Already before this legislation was coming out, Uni-Europa conducted research. We went to all of the European countries and asked an industrial relation expert from your perspective in your country. What are the obstacles to multi-company sectoral collective bargaining, and what are the ways you promote sectoral collective bargaining in your country, or you could think you can do this? And as a follow-up, and we have basically a big 300-page summary document on this, and or a summary collection of the different reports, but also summary document and actually a card game where we give suggestions what could be done. And what was very interesting in the seminars we organized afterwards, that when a union from a specific country looks at it, they have a certain framework how they want to promote collective bargaining. And when you get somebody else in from another country, they have different ideas because the systems are different. And then suddenly the first union said, we never really thought about it, but let's try it. And that is the strength of the European trade union movement, getting these ideas together, and really something you haven't thought about because it's not straightforward in your own national setting. Suddenly you might see the light and might try it. And one of the key points, what we see all over Europe is when we look at organizing, so recruiting, strengthening the trade union base, making activists in the union. This element too often is still separate from the collective bargaining dimension. So we have to work closely together. And that is one of the key planks of Uni-Europa's activities. When we talk about organizing and collective bargaining, the two things belong together. The aim of a trade union has to be to get a collective agreement, and it has to be ideally to get a collective agreement within the sector. That brings fairness and more equality in there, and also strengthens our power as trade unions. But for that, we also need a strong basis. So we have to invest in our members, make them activists, but the aim is always we want to get a collective bargaining. And obviously, as we are just talking about the minimum wage directive, the 80% target of the European Union, we also need the political backing. So our key priority as Uni-Europa is strengthening the collective bargaining power of our affiliates. And we do this first, bottom up, by strengthening the organizing capacity, the capacity of union members standing together to fight for collective bargaining. It's secondly, top down, creating at the European, but also at the national level, a framework which is conducive in terms of politics and legislation for collective bargaining. And the third element for Uni-Europa is quite clearly working together, putting pressure on multinational companies so that they are agents of collective bargaining wherever they operate, and not only in the home country. And the colleagues from Central and Eastern Europe know this better than I do, how different multinational companies act in the Western home country and they do in Central and Eastern.
Amen to that. The last question is the 80% and the future of that endeavor. So now we have 2026. So what is your hope / gut feeling / optimism / pessimism telling you? So when we will reach this threshold in post-communistic Europe, so in the lowest organizing part of European Union, is it 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, never? What do you? I don't want you to make any promises. I just want you an honest answer that maybe, and a number.
I think it's a wrong question. I mean, the question is not 80%. I mean, when I say what number I want 100% collective bargaining
Touché.
coverage for
Yeah.
everyone. So the point is
Yeah, but
not
the 80% is the call out for the implementation. So that's the goalpost
precisely.
or the North
But
Star for, you know.
but the point is, for me, it's important not to reach the 80%. For me, is that we make advances, that every year we get more people covered by collective bargaining, and certainly can combat that collective bargaining coverage is falling every year, and in many countries it does more. So we just have to stabilize, and that means we have to work on strengthening the collective bargaining power. Whether it is in a country 1%, 2%, 3%, 40%, I don't care. We have to move forward. We have to be the trade union movement. And when I talk about this, and we didn't really mention this in our discussion, I also want to come back to the point of the rise of the far right, of anti-democratic forces throughout Europe. I'm convinced as a trade unionist, but also as a Democrat, collective bargaining is key for democracy because democracy is about finding compromise. And collective bargaining is about compromise. You might know this, many of the listeners might know it, how difficult it is to get the trade union members together and agree on a position for the negotiations. You have to come a compromise. The opinion of different workforces in the sector are different. So you have to come up with a compromise. And then obviously, when you have the compromise, when you have your position for the negotiations, you have to go to the employers. And obviously the employers say, great, you made a compromise, so we agree with your compromise. So there will be another compromise. And then for the trade unions, the leaders would deal with the negotiations. They have to go back to their members and explain to them that, sorry, the compromise we reached among ourselves is not the one that is possible with employers. That's democracy, making this process that we actually understand that we can't get what we want, even if we compromise among ourselves. It's always a give and take. That's democracy. And for this, the best way where people, colleagues can experience this, it's actually being involved in participatory collective bargaining, where they have a say. Because otherwise you vote every 4 years or so for your national parliament. With collective bargaining, that's a process which is regularly happening. You have to make decisions with the workforce together on issues in terms of trade union representation, workers' representation in the sector or in the company. That is where you basically are using your democratic rights much more intensively than you would do in politics by voting in elections.
Okay, thank you very much, Oliver. So we were aiming for half an hour, so I think this is it. So I hope till next time. Yeah, I hope that this was just one of many discussions we will have during the next few years, because, well, I don't plan to get sick and die, and hopefully you will live for 80, as you said your mother is. So happy days, stay healthy, and till next time.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.